Hey guys, Andrew Roller with Dirt Rider Magazine. I'm here with Alan Brown and Steve Boniface, and we're summing up our 2018 450 MX Shootout. Coming in 6th place was a Husqvarna FC 450. The main point that most test riders didn't like about this bike was the engine. Most guys felt that it was rather on the weak side. And Alan, what were your thoughts on that?
It was a little bit troubling. You know, it's basically the same engine as a KTM 450, but I'm pretty sure it has some different mapping. It has a significantly different muffler. They use the Euro-spec muffler versus the North American spec. It kind of mellowed out the engine. There's 2 maps, you know, between the 1 and the 2 map, I didn't feel like there was a huge difference. And even when you try the traction control map, it didn't seem to change it too much. However, I did find that the engine still revs pretty far. The KTM, Husqvarna, that engine design that they share certainly revs far. But when you ride the KTM engine, and you ride the Husky engine, you're like, it's missing something compared to the KTM.
Right. Yeah, I felt like on the first day when we rode at Paula, obviously not as much elevation changes there compared to the second day at Kauai. I ranked it a little bit higher. But I really noticed at Kauai, a little bit higher elevation. I just felt like I was just shifting a lot, and it felt like the power was in the top end, but it just seemed like it took a long time to get there. Steve, what were your thoughts on the engine as a whole? Do you feel similarly?
Yes, I do actually. Same thing as you guys. I felt like almost like the engine was restricted. The power was like restricted. I just feel like when you compare that bike to another 450, the KTM for example, which I was expecting the Husky to be closer to the KTM engine-wise, it's not as good as the KTM. It's still like a really good and strong engine. The characteristics of the power curve are really similar to the KTM, just less, little bit everywhere.
So moving on to the suspension, the Husqvarna FC 450 comes with a WP AER 48 front fork and a WP rear shock. Alan, what were your thoughts on the suspension overall?
Riding it, initially I kind of thought it was a little stiff. I rode it a number of times, trying to figure out what I could do to change it, what adjustments would benefit me. I moved the forks up and down in the triple clamps, played with the air pressure, I played with the sag. I just couldn't seem to get it comfortable. There's another bike that has the exact same suspension on it, and right out of the box, it feels more comfortable. I don't know what the differences are, but I'm assuming that there is different valving in the suspension and possibly different rear spring rate. The swing arm is completely different on the Husky versus the KTM. That can change the characteristic of how the bike handles.
Well, for me, first it was stiff. We couldn't really set the sag like it was supposed to. But with that said, like it didn't feel like it like on a track. It still felt really good, even with like right off the bat, like we knew like the suspension were too stiff for me. It didn't feel like that on a track.
So moving on to handling, this bike, for me anyway, felt really nimble, really light. I was impressed with how well it cornered. Overall, I was really happy with it. Steve, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I really liked how I felt like standing up on a bike. I felt like I was over the bike. Even though the suspension were a little stiff like we talked about, for me anyway, it felt good. Like I was able to corner like good and follow the ruts like I wanted to. I was able to put the bike where I wanted to.
Definitely. And Alan, how did you feel about the chassis overall?
Again, I had a hard time getting comfortable on it quick. With that chassis, you need to sit very much on the front of the bike. Front wheel traction, I just never felt like I knew where the front wheel was unless I sat very far forward on the bike. The seat, the ergonomics of that bike also are really good. The chassis was okay. I just lacked a certain amount of confidence or comfort in it right away.
So that wraps up for the Husqvarna FC 450, finishing in 6th place. Check back to dirtrider.com to see how the rest of the bikes finished in our 450 MX Shootout.